Welcome to the All Four Downs podcast. I'm your host, Obi-Wan, with Justin D. We'll get you momentarily. And this is the reactions of college football. And did you know Charles Woodson won the Michigan's third Heisman, joining Desmond Howard and Tom Harmon? He's the only player to win the Heisman playing significant minutes on both sides of the ball since college football moved to a two-platoon system in the early 1960s. So, why am I bringing this? There is a two-way standout named Travis Hunter from the University of Colorado. Will he be the next Heisman Trophy winner? And again, thank you for joining us on this Tuesday night where we just got done hearing and finishing seeing all that good stuff, the viewership of the selection committee for the college football playoff top 25. And in case you missed it and stuff like that, or you're curious to know what our reaction is, that's exactly what we're here for. And so, Justin, thank you once again for coming on. Before we go and dive into these rankings, Heisman hopefuls, do you see Travis Hunter winning this year? Do you think it's just one player, or should there be a competition? Could we see a competition, more than one person being mentioned for the win?
Yeah, thanks for having me on again, Obi. And I think Ashton Jeanty, the Boise State running back, should still be up there too. I think Travis Hunter should win the award for the stats that he's put up on both sides of the field, but I think Ashton Jeanty should still be sitting there. He's already got over 1,800 yards on the season. He's averaging 190 per game on the ground, and he's averaging almost 6 yards a carry. And national TV against UNLV, he went for over 153 yards and he dropped for whatever reason. It kind of felt like people kind of dismissed him, but I still think he should be there. And he's had an unbelievable year in Boise. We saw it tonight. They moved up in the rankings, and I know we'll get to it. So I think Ashton Jeanty should still be there, but I do think Travis Hunter should be the favorite.
Well, I'm gonna tell you this: I give it more to Travis Hunter because he's in the Big 12. I don't know how much competition is there in the Mountain West Division. However, put Boise State in SEC and see if he could put up those same numbers that he has now. But that's an argument for a later time. But let's go ahead and dive in real quick to the.
Can I say one thing about Jeanty too? They did play Oregon week 2. He had 192 yards, 3 touchdowns. He averaged 70 yards a carry. So he did do that against Oregon, the number 1 team in the country.
I just want to know if he could do it with the SEC, though.
Yeah, I mean, he might be. I think he could be able to.
Can he do that against Georgia?
He did against Oregon.
But hey, I'm just saying, I'm talking about SEC. But we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there because I'm still butthurt on how these rankings were positioned. But let's go ahead. We're brought to you by CMG Sports Central. Visit the website cmgsportscentral.com to hear your favorite podcast of all major sports. First down, let's go ahead and take our reaction here. College football playoffs. This is the room where the selection committee was at. And of course, next week at 8:00 p.m. to 9 p.m. will be the show for the next selection. And we're almost close to the end of the season. And remind you, it's a 12-team college football playoff. The 5 highest ranked conference champions receive an automatic bid. 4 highest ranked conference champions are seated at numbers 1 through 4 and receive a first round bye. 7 at-large teams determined by the remaining highest ranked teams, and the seats 5 through 8 will host the first round. And that is pretty big when you enter in the playoffs. We started from 21 to 25. Arizona State, Iowa State, Missouri, UNLV, and Illinois. What's your take on these 5 right here?
Yeah, for me, I'm glad to see UNLV get some love there at number 24. I know there's a chance they could play Boise in the Mountain West conference championship game. I know they need Colorado State to lose one. They got to win out here. Arizona State too has been very underrated. Kenny Dillon's done an unbelievable job, um, and then kind of the last thing on these five, or I don't know if you noticed, but Greg McElroy, an Alabama guy, kind of pointed out how Illinois is propping up Penn State being in this ranking. He didn't say
Absolutely.
about Missouri though, about with Bama. Just
I mean, I agree with the committee putting Illinois in the top 25, but what I disagree is Missouri inside the top 25, especially at even at number 23, because their points differential is in a negative. I mean, they haven't shown up against their own conference. They're 7-3, but those three losses are humongous in the SEC. I don't think they belong there, period. But they're 3-3 in the conference. They feel like they need to add them to add more resume to the others. And I know that Joe Aguirre, if he's here, he would be frustrated right now because it seems like anything to add a resume is 21 through 25. That's exactly what they're doing. They don't even know who's supposed to be in the bottom. I do agree. At least for Illinois, they represent Arizona State, definitely. Iowa State, I think that's a push, but I know they're 8-2. Maybe because their record stands for it, right? But a 3-loss team, man, like I will pick Illinois over Missouri. I would. Their point differentials is still in the positive compared to Missouri. Let's go ahead and move on to 16-20. Colorado, Clemson, South Carolina, Army, and Tulane.
yeah. Army Tulane could be the matchup in a couple weeks in the American Athletic Conference Championship game. Boise loses, who knows? Army could or Tulane get that spot. South Carolina moving up. There was a nice win against Missouri. Missouri, actually did have a pulse this week against the actual team. So, but yeah, like these, Colorado kind of sneaking up there too. It'll be interesting to see if they do end up winning the Big 12. Would they surpass Boise? Would Colorado get that 4 seed, or would Colorado have to play in the first round?
Well, I'm gonna tell you this. Colorado, in my opinion, if Colorado wants to win out, they should be able to be past Boise State. But before we even get there, the team that need to be past Boise State is Army. Army undefeated, but should they defeat Notre Dame this weekend, you can scratch all that. Jump Army to the top, honestly, because I'm tired of them saying, look, Army's playing the second, I think they said was the
Yeah,
second
it's like second worst
weakest
schedule.
schedule, but they forget. A lot of people forget that these are not players that are going to the NFL. They're not playing for the NFL. And I keep scratching my head. These ain't 4 or 5-star caliber players. These are players that they didn't pick them. They find a way to do something, and they're going to the service after they're done. And I'm tired of the guys in the media and everyone portraying that Army. Oh, they're playing these weak class. Look, everybody's hard against Army. You're talking about Army who only runs the ball, right? That's the traditional Wildcat way and everything else. But this season, they're throwing the ball. Now they got wide receivers and everything else, so it's spectacular, right? But okay, we already noticed that Navy lost to Notre Dame big time. They got blown out. And Army versus Notre Dame will be at Yankee Stadium this weekend. And I know their favorite, I think Notre Dame's favorite, what, 13.5 or something like that. So it's
Yeah, right on there.
expected. But if Army pulls a huge upset, they will knock out Notre Dame out of the top 25. I know it, just because they have that loss against Northern Illinois. But hey, that's another deal. But you're right. Army versus Tulane for the American Athletic Conference Championship. That's going to happen before the Army versus Navy game. And what's funny is that Army versus Navy game, does that have more valuable than the conference championship? Does that have more value? What if Army was to win the next 2 games? Does that mean that they're going to the college football playoffs? And if so, how valuable is the Commander-in-Chief trophy between Army versus Navy? So that's an interesting point there. And that's my take. But other than that, South Carolina, number 18, it's outstanding. They deserve it. They're on the roll. Absolutely. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. 11 through 15, Tennessee, Boise State, SMU, BYU, Texas A&M. What's your take on these 5 schools right now?
I'm gonna start with BYU here, and I think the committee pretty much told you tonight, dropping BYU all the way to 14th, that there's no way they're getting a second. There's no way a second Big 12 school is getting into this 12-team playoff here because if you look at all like the metrics, the strength of record, the game control, BYU's ahead of SMU and Miami, and I think even Boise in those aspects. Um, but the thing is, they don't want BYU sitting there 7th or 8th in the Big 12 championship week. And if they lose that game, moving them all the way back to 14th, and then we all, everyone's like, why did they move 6 spots for losing a conference championship game? Now they're doing it now to make it more subtle. So, I think the committee pretty much told you tonight that there's no chance the second Big 12 team's getting in. They probably don't want a second ACC team in there either. That's probably why CMU may not be moving up as much either.
Listen, BYU beat SMU.
Yeah, that's another thing.
So head-to-head does not make a difference in the top 25. Sadly to say, the head-to-head doesn't make sense, okay? I still feel like SMU is underrated. I think they should be ranked higher than Miami. That's just my opinion. And if you look at the standings, SMU is undefeated in the ACC. Miami is not. And it could be a potential between SMU and Miami to play for the ACC championship. Texas A&M holding the top 2 spots in the SEC, them and Texas, and they will play each other next week. So that'll be interesting there. 6 through 10, Notre Dame, Alabama, Miami, Ole Miss, and Georgia. I said head-to-head don't make a difference, but Ole Miss is on top of Georgia. But Georgia has the hardest schedule of everybody. You know what I mean? Like, come on now. Like, Georgia did beat Tennessee. Yeah. So it's crazy it's mind-boggling how that goes. It doesn't matter for certain teams, but now it matters now in the SEC, and especially in the top 10, right? Miami at number 8, they're overrated. I don't like their games. Their games is not as good as the SEC or the Big Ten, to be honest with you. I don't think any team right now other than SMU in the ACC is good enough. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, SMU, I felt like Saturday night they kind of played a little bit, they showed a little bit there against Boston College up there on Saturday night, but yeah, they've been pretty good most of the year. Miami's defense is definitely a big worry, and Cam Ward's definitely bailed them out of games, and they should be okay this week against Wake Forest. Next week going up to the Carrier Dome, that could be a little bit of a tricky spot there for Miami. So yeah, I could see Miami winning it, but I think if it's them and SMU in the ACC championship game, that the over under that game is like 80 points. I don't, there's not gonna be many punts in that game.
Well, I'm gonna tell you what, anything can happen. We see all these games every week. Someone's getting upsetted. I believe that Miami could be upset. I won't sleep on Wake Forest. I really don't. But yeah, it'll be a great game between Miami and Syracuse. Alabama needs to win out, I believe. I believe if Alabama wins out, they'll be in the SEC championship versus Texas. I do believe that. But then again, whoever's the winner between Texas and Texas A&M will go against the winner against Alabama should they win out. It's a lot of games, and yet Alabama still has to go. If I'm not mistaken, to go on the road against Auburn. It's not easy to play in Auburn. But let's go ahead and move on. 1 through 5, Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, Indiana. You got 4 Big Ten teams in the top 5. I have a problem with that. Okay. Maybe it's because the commissioner is from the Big Ten. The selection committee chairman in the Big Ten. Is that what it is? So it would have been different if the SEC commissioner was leading the top 25 and have all SEC teams. Look, it doesn't matter, right? Because listen, Penn State is overrated. I'm telling you that right now. You're talking about Penn State that had a chance to make a difference against Ohio State, and their offense could not score a touchdown. Their defense scored a touchdown in the first quarter, and the rest of the game, they couldn't do nothing. They moved the ball halfway and did nothing. So why they're in the top 5? I don't know. Indiana, okay, their biggest test right now, playing Ohio State. Let's go. If Ohio State's, is Indiana that good enough? Beat Ohio State. Or if not, you're going to be looking like every other year. What I keep saying, there's only 3 schools in the Big Ten: Ohio State, then you have Michigan, and now Penn State. Well, you can scratch Michigan. Now you can add Oregon to the list. Oregon, Ohio State, and everybody else, no good. Okay? There's no good. Penn State can't beat anybody in the top 5. Okay? Indiana, we're about to see what's going to happen. Is this the new regime in the Big Ten? Can Indiana beat Ohio State? We're going to talk about that game later on in our prediction. But as far as for you concerned, any disagreement? Are you happy with the top 5?
Yeah, the top 5 is gonna settle itself out here. We'll see Indiana this weekend. With Texas, how good is Texas? Their best win is a 3-point win at Vanderbilt. The one team that they played that's in, like against Georgia this year at home, Georgia embarrassed them at home. If they lose to Texas A&M in 2 weeks, I don't think a 10-2 Texas should be in the 12-team tournament. I don't think so. There's not a good. You cannot tell me Michigan's not a good win this year. Vandy's your best
I
one.
think Texas being protected, man. I think if they lose, he's still be in the top 12. I think they're protected. I believe that if Texas were to lose this weekend against Kentucky, that'll be a huge upset. Now you have a valid point. But if they were to lose against Texas A&M, I don't think it's going to hurt Texas at all.
You're probably right. I don't agree with it. I think it should, because I didn't think Texas was that impressive against Arkansas. They were impressive against Florida, but that was a Florida team that had a
banged up already.
Starting.
They were banged
up. So,
and I'm glad that you mentioned that. I really do, because again, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but let's dive in there, man. We got to dive in there. Okay. Listen, before we actually go to the next down, the recap right now, we have Oregon, I should say Boise State, Oregon, Miami, and Texas got a quarterfinal as of right now. I do disagree with this because Miami is not in first place in the ACC, but yet they have to do it by rank, which I totally disagree. You say that you got to win the conference championship to get to the bye week. Well, why don't you give credit to those that are in first place? That's a disrespect to SMU. Okay? Really, I really do on that one. But hey, it is what it is, right? The rest of it, imagine this: BYU versus Ohio State, Alabama versus Notre Dame. I'm going to tell you right now, that's a blowout ready to happen. Notre Dame doesn't do good against the SEC. Georgia versus Penn State. Bye-bye, Penn State. It looks like besides the Ohio State game, the road team is going to win. And you're going to see the SEC dominate against the Big Ten if that was to happen.
I don't know if you heard, but the Tennessee wide receivers, I guess on Saturday night, it was 55 degrees down in Athens. They were all complaining that the heater wasn't working. Some of those SEC teams might not, like going up to South Bend on a Saturday night when it's 20 degrees and snowing out. That could be a factor.
But Tennessee's not there, though. We're not Tennessee, though. The Georgia Bulldogs know how to play anywhere, man. They're the Bulldogs for a reason.
We'll see. I don't know last time they played like in a cold weather environment. I don't know.
Hey. We'll have to wait and see on that, man. But I'm liking it. I'm still sold that should this be the games, right? SEC will dominate the first round, no matter where you at. Okay. It'll be interesting to see which team will be the best team at a neutral site. That's what's going to make the difference there. And the last time Oregon was in the playoffs, they did lose. And if I'm mistaken, they did lose to Ohio State, their very first college football playoffs. As a matter of fact, I believe so. Yeah, that did happen.
That changed your game.
Second down. Let's go. Let's move on to the standings real quick. Army versus Tulane is set in stone. Both these teams will go for the American Athletic Conference. And the ACC, SMU 6-0. Clemson and Miami, they both got one loss. However, Clemson's done playing games in the ACC. Should Miami win the next 2 ACC games, they surpass Clemson, and then Miami will face SMU. However, should Miami lose, then you get your SMU versus Clemson. Set in stone right there. In the Big 12, BYU and Colorado are tied. However, Arizona State plays BYU. If Arizona State defeats BYU, Arizona State moves in there, and possibly again, Colorado has to win out. So really, Colorado has control of their own destiny. They've won 4 in a row. Amazing. And as far as Arizona State, they're 2-0 against the top 25 teams. So it's looking good for Arizona State right about now. In the Big 10, Oregon undefeated, Indiana undefeated. Very interesting because now we got Indiana versus Ohio State, and it's going to be at Ohio Stadium. Very dangerous for the Indiana. Look, it's going to be over 100,000 people there cheering on for the Buckeyes. Home field advantage at large. And Penn State, yeah, they're 6-1, but listen, if Ohio State wins, bye-bye Penn State. That's all I'm going to say. It's over for them.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be. Yeah, Minnesota definitely could be a trap game this weekend. That's Minnesota's starting to play a lot better. Max Brommer's figured out. So yeah, Penn State could be in trouble, and we'll see with Indiana if they could somehow go into Ohio State and get a win.
Southeast Conference is a tight race. Texas A&M, Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, and Ole Miss. Only Georgia is done with the SEC. They're 6-2, and it doesn't look like they will have an opportunity to get to the SEC championship. But what I do see is Texas and Texas A&M, they will play each other next week. They're going to renew their rivalry. Tennessee has one more game. Alabama still has to play Auburn. They played these, I don't know. I think they played like an off week game or something like that this past weekend. And then you got Ole Miss going against Florida. That's a tough game for Ole Miss. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Florida. They got a quarterback, I think, Agway or something like that. It doesn't matter. Agway, right? He had a hamstring injury. He is back, and he's making a big difference for that Florida offense. Okay. Notice that I don't have Missouri here. They're nowhere to be found. Oh, knock, knock. Where's LSU? Home. Eliminated. Outstanding. I'm loving it. And then the Mountain West Conference. Boise State's there. I'm still scratching my head as to why. I mean, yeah, they lost. Who they lose to?
Oregon by 3 on the road.
By 3. Whoopity-doo. I don't care.
It's number 1 team
What
in the
happened to the
country.
rest of the games? What happened to the rest of that schedule? The strength of schedule and stuff like that. What's good about the Mountain West Conference? I don't know. And I'm hoping for Boise State to lose a game. That's just me. I'm just being a hater right now.
Yeah. The UNLV one now looks better for them. That they're ranked 24, but we'll see.
If BYU loses, just saying, but hey. Huh?
UNLV.
UNLV. I thought you said BYU. My bad. No, let's start with third down. We're moving on to our picks. Army versus Notre Dame. Notre Dame, 14.5 favorite. What's your take?
For this one, I know you're probably not going to agree with me. I want to take Army. I'll be rooting for Army. I think they're going to definitely be more competitive than Navy was. I love Brandon Daly. He's a linebacker playing the quarterback position. I think Notre Dame's offense has really been a rhythm, and they're used to playing these kind of triple option offenses. They play Navy every year. I know they play Army pretty often, so I think Notre Dame's going to get them here on Saturday night.
That's it? That's all you got?
Yeah, I can expand a little bit more. I think the way Riley Leonard's playing,
that's all right. That's all right. You're good. You're good. Trust me. Listen, Daly should be back playing. I know he's been hurt. He's the big difference on this, right? You got Leonard, the quarterback from Notre Dame, that was a transfer from Duke. He's having a fabulous season. I don't think. And here's my take. I think that Notre Dame is going to think that they're going to go into Yankee Stadium and put a stomping on Army. They think they're Navy. I'm going to tell you right now, they're not Navy. They're Army. They're soldiers. and they're going to represent. However, stats hasn't been looking great for Army when it comes to Notre Dame. They have not scored a touchdown in the last 3 games against Notre Dame. If Army is able to score a touchdown, Notre Dame's in trouble. They're going to be looking like Northern Illinois, okay? I'm taking the 14.5 points with Army. I'm a risk taker, man, and I'm a veteran, and I'm going to support my Army. I am. Call me crazy, but I'm going for Army all the way. Let's go. Make some noise. Put some rumble into this top 25. Indiana versus Ohio State. Who you got in this game?
I got Ohio State. I do think they cover in this one. I've been big Indiana fan all year. I love Kurt Cinetti. He's done an awesome job there. That team's been going there believing, but I just think I don't think Indiana's faced an aerial attack or even kind of the guys that they have not faced the weapons that Ohio State has offensively all year. I do think it's gonna be a little different. And I do think Ohio State wins this game by 17. And look, if Ohio State comes out like they have at times and they come out slow, not ready, and Indiana puts one up early and Indiana starts believing, I think Ohio State could be in a lot of trouble. But I do think Ohio State does take care of business. I think Indiana kind of struggles this week, especially up front against Ohio State.
I would love for Indiana to beat Ohio State. I would love it, and I would celebrate. I would, because every year Ohio State's always ranked to the top. Okay, it's almost like everyone's expect like the baseball of the New York Yankees winning all the way. It's like the NFL with the fans of the Dallas Cowboys assume they're going to win every year. Okay, that's how I feel like with Ohio State, and they got nothing to show for, right? They have nothing to show for. However, you're right. The way they play is a little suspect, but the way they finish strong. I haven't seen anything from Indiana. They haven't been tested. They haven't proved me anything except for they're undefeated. I'm going to be safe on my pick. I'm going to take Ohio State. I'm going to take them. It's at Ohio State. I just home field advantage. If it was at Indiana, it'll be and it's a 12 o'clock game. That's crazy. You would think this game will be pushed to a 7:30 game.
That's what Fox wants their big game at noon.
Big Ten.
Yeah. Huh? That's what Fox wants those games at noon. They tried to
get their ratings early.
Yeah. It'll be after next week when they put Michigan. The last 6 games have all been at 12 for Ohio State too. So they're used to the early.
I think it's to their advantage. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to this. Ole Miss versus Florida. Ole Miss is favored at 10.5.
Yeah. I got Ole Miss in this one. Look, Florida, DJ Lagway. I would love to take Florida. I can't stand taking Lane Kiffin. Because I don't think he's great. I don't think he's great at times as head coach, but Florida just, they ran 93. They were on their defense was on the field for 93 plays last week. They had 3 corners played all 93 of those plays. They're so banged up in the secondary. Now you play Ole Miss, who's coming off a bye with an aerial assault. Baby Trey Harris, one of the best wide receivers in the country, is healthy. I think he could have a big day. DJ Lagway didn't run a ton last week with that hamstring injury still. And look, it was a nice win against LSU last week, but let's be honest, LSU quit after that Alabama game. I think Vandy's going to upset LSU this weekend. I think LSU quit. So, yeah, Florida's been a great story. Well, good story, but I think Ole Miss goes in there and they should take care of business.
I'm going to have to disagree with you there, man. I'm sorry. Look, Florida took care of business last year against Ole Miss, okay? And the Gators have a 2-game win streak. A 2-game win streak against Ole Miss with Lane Kiffin being the head coach. That's Florida Gators for you. All right? Florida Gators that they even themselves quit on their previous coach. And I'm going to tell you, their record, everything's even. 12 wins, 12 losses, 1 tie. That's their rivalry. I'm taking Florida. It's at Florida. They're going to upset Ole Miss. Bye-bye. Give more of a cushion for Georgia Bulldogs in the top 12. Yes, right. Haterade. That's me. Yeah, I'm loving it. BYU versus Arizona State. And Arizona State's favored 3 points.
They are. Been going back and forth on this one. I'm gonna take Arizona State in this one. Again, they went on the road and got up 24-0 on Kansas State, which going to Manhattan, that's a tough place to play. Cam Scatterboot, they didn't have one of his best games. I know he's been banged up the last couple of weeks, but Sam Levitt's played really, really well under Kelly Dillingham. I think at home they play well again. And BYU, probably one of the weeks where they deserve the win. It's some luck went against them last week. I think again Arizona State at home, early kick in Tempe, which is rare. I don't know if the heat's going to be a factor, but I'm going to take Arizona State here at home.
I agree with you 100%. I really do, because Arizona State has owned BYU. Matter of fact, they got 20 wins to 8 against BYU. However, BYU has a 3-game win streak, but I think that's going to snap. Arizona State is going to handle their business, and they're going to kick BYU out to the bottom of the top 25 where they belong. Absolutely. And then Kentucky versus Texas. There's a purpose why I put this in here. Texas is favored by 20.5 points. Did you know that in the last 4 seasons, regardless of Kentucky's record, the last 2 games of the season, Kentucky's has been able to play their A game. They haven't been blown out. And the last 2 games in the last 4 years. And yet we're predicting Texas to win over 20 points. I tell you that somebody wasn't doing the numbers correctly. Do you agree or disagree? Who you take?
I think Kentucky covers. I think Texas does win the football game, though. Mark Stoops does get his team up for these big games against these big opponents. You saw this year against Georgia. They took them to the wire this year, and they played Tennessee pretty well a couple weeks ago. So and they beat Ole Miss on the road. So I don't love Kentucky's offense. Brock Vandegrift, the Georgia transfer, hasn't been great. They don't have a ton of talent offensively, but I think their defense keeps them in it. And I just haven't been impressed with Texas and that Quinn Ewers and that offense. It just seems they're very inconsistent. So I think Texas gets the win, but I do think Kentucky keeps it close.
Look, Kentucky might, again, give up a couple of touchdowns at the beginning. They might be able to walk it out a little bit more. I do expect for more of a defensive game. But I am being at home, being at Texas, that's an advantage for the home team. As much as I want to go for Kentucky, I might take the points, but I'm with you. I'll take Texas for the win. All right, Penn State versus Minnesota. And before you get hot and heavy over there, Justin, this is my spoiler alert. That's right. It's spoiler. It's not a prediction. Minnesota will beat Penn State.
Wow.
That's it. I'm telling you that right now. Minnesota beats Penn State. Money line.
All right. I wouldn't be shocked. PJ Fleck, home dog. Usually they play pretty well. Max Brosmer, the New Hampshire transfer, he's looked a lot better the last couple weeks. He makes smart reads. Darius Taylor, the running back's finally healthy. Daniel Jackson's been a really good wide receiver for him the last couple weeks. So I do expect Minnesota keeps this thing close, but I think Tyler Warren and Drew Allard play well tonight or on Saturday. They do get out with a victory here. But I do think Minnesota covers the spread.
All right. Big shout out to Lucifer Morningstar. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's what's that TV series?
Oh yeah, Lucifer.
I bet you whoever typed that is laughing right now. Be like, oh, they got me. They got me. All right, there, Lucifer. Now what? Now I'm scratching my head because I forgot the name of that show.
Yeah, I think it was called Lucifer.
Yeah, there is a show called Lucifer. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's on Netflix now. It used to be on TV. Absolutely. Shady. There we go. We're going ahead and move to 4th down before Lucifer strikes again. All Listen, usually we have the final whistle, and we have something going on, but I find this entertaining is that you're going to hear a lot of coaches being fired. All right. You're going to have a lot of coaches fired, and already started. If you take a look at the news, uh, we have head coaches, coordinators. They're all getting fired. Why? Why are they waiting it to now? Why not to the end of the season? Well, I'll tell you why. The deal is that everyone's getting ready for the transfer portal. People are now getting ready to get their coaches, put it in there, do it just right. So that way they'll be able to get the players. Why not? Okay. It seems like it's going to be a thing now. And not just only that, but also in the NFL. Like everyone's firing everybody. If your school sucks, it is what it is. I'm not hating, but you better make sure you have enough money, because once you fire a head coach, you got to pay the difference. And it might be a hefty one. I wish we could say that USC is going to fire their coach or LSU, but it's going to cost too much to fire them. So they're going to keep them. LSU looked like the players quit on the team. Everyone's yelling at everybody. No one's respecting the head coach. They're yelling at the head coach. It was live on TV. What does that tell you about the organization? What does that tell you for all you athletic directors out there? You better be careful of how well you spend on the coaches, because if it doesn't go your way, you're going to have to pay a hefty price. And that, I tell you, that is the word. That is the final whistle. So, Justin, thank you for joining me on the All Four Downs podcast. I'll see everyone next week for the next reaction of the top 25 in college football. Take care, everyone. You've been watching All Four Downs.